This instrument is like a distilled woodwind, basically. There's no keys, there's no mouthpiece, there's no reed. It's just a piece of bamboo. This was the roots of the bamboo that were in the ground. So it was harvested and then dried, and this chunk was taken out, which kind of creates a little crescent shape for the tone, and there's only 5 finger holes. So the original version may or may not have come from China maybe 1,000 years ago into Japan, but in Japan is where this has had a history of being breath cultivation meditation pieces in monasteries, and the smaller version of the flute, which is the more common, is used in some court music with other, like Japanese chamber music basically. So coming up as a clarinetist and saxophonist and flute player in a jazz and creative music tradition, and then doing classical training, when I heard this instrument, it really spoke to me in that elemental, direct sort of nature and spirituality way, just the tone of it. And that is actually its role in Japanese culture to an extent. Like I say, there's a classical kind of playing songs component with the small flute. But these big flutes, and there's no lacquer inside, so it's pure raw bamboo, so the texture, like I was talking about with Charlie's voice, is similar in my mind to this. You get breathiness, you get distortion effects, you get overblown effects, dynamics, and subtle sounds that are not part of like a orchestral flute player's repertoire. So my pieces really, my compositions really lean into that. They lean into the rhythmic aspect of it being a slightly lower pitch, and so playing bass lines and rhythm section related kind of riffs, and that blues and jazz, rock and funk influences in my playing and writing. But then vocally, the melodies are influenced by singers that I would have absorbed what they're doing, like Charley Patton Sunhouse. In this kind of more, I would have to say earthy and elemental, yet also ecstatic, sort of devotional sensibility. Maybe not as ecstatic as the Reverend E.D. Campbell, but still intentional. So I'm just going to do 2 of my original pieces at the beginning, or because I like to just introduce and then not talk, so you can sort of sink into the tone. So they're all blues influences, a style that I started calling bamboo gospel, because it's based on the tone and the personality of the bamboo and I working together. And of course, gospel is the good news, but it's also a style, a musical style that is, let's say, devotional and intentional rather than just, recreational. So in the flute world, I say playing flute this way, transverse flute, that's recreation. Playing the end-blown flute this way is cultivation, spiritual cultivation. So the first piece is Black Earth, my composition, all 3 of these are mine, and then Wood Prophet, which is a kind of a character persona that is kind of working itself out on me, and Green Swampy Water, which has got influences based on other blues pieces, and that one includes both flutes. So these are basically 3 bamboo gospel pieces, and feel free to meditate, listen, or space out, or whatever you like. the wood prophet. Breaking my own code of silence here. So Green Swampy Water is the next piece. You'll notice that one of the ways that I make what I feel is a robust solo unaccompanied piece, which by the way is a great contribution of shakuhachi to the world of woodwinds. So I played woodwinds my whole life, let's say since 1983, when it would have been these two people in front here that rented me the Henkin clarinet in the 4th grade band department. These are my parents. And so 83, that was a little while ago. And if you're playing a woodwind instrument, you're playing in an ensemble, 98%, maybe 99.8% of the time. So the Honkyoku Zen meditation pieces, of which I'll play one later, because it's a blues affiliated concert, so someday soon I'll be offering just all Honkyoku concerts, which, as I was relating to Dairon earlier, that's what all of my teacher and his teacher, when they would play concerts, they would stick with those pieces. Sometimes they play pieces with koto and then solo unaccompanied the meditation pieces. But so let's say Sufi dervish music with the ney flute, what the Mevlevi dervishes are doing. They might have a flute solo in a ceremony that's extended. But there's no repertoire, there's no full, robust catalog of pieces you could play, like string quartets, where there's a bunch of string quartets, you get 4 people. That's my goal, in a way, with woodwind instruments, and that's what these pieces are. Because Honkyoku, the Zen meditation pieces written for shakuhachi, they emphasize a lot of those same points I was making with Charley Patton. The sound of one note and the shape you make with it can be very interesting. The power and the chi and the musicianship of one person can be very interesting. You don't necessarily need other people to make it something engaging. Another way that I do that on these pieces is through tempo changes, a variety of stylistic influences, aggressive, absorptive polystylism. And so there's tempo changes. And in this flute, there's a tempo change and a flute change. So that will happen in the middle. And this is also very specifically slide guitar blues influence. put that into the internet. That we made a music video for that out by where we live currently in Marin County in the woods. And so my friend Andy had access to very good camera equipment through his job and took it out to the woods and made a great looking video for that song. And then his friend did some animation, not to have a spoiler alert, but there's magical powers to the flute in that video. So I'm going to stick with this sort of like slide guitar theme influence on this flute. Because we have no keys, it can be very slidey. Because it has no mouthpiece, we can have all these expressive effects, and split tones and effects like that. So distortions and breath stuff. So I'm using that throughout a lot of these pieces. And some of that is slide effects. Some of it is actually electric guitar slide with overdriven amplifier effects that we're influencing. And so let's say in the extended lineage of Charley Patton, you would find such characters as pretty much any rock guitarist you've ever heard of. One of the first great slide guitarists that I was like paying attention to, he played pedal steel and slide this way, is David Gilmour, Pink Floyd. And so he would write solos that were written. They sound improvised, but he plays them the same every time, but they're improvised, kind of distilled solos, and this is one of them. And so maybe some of you already know it. I'm not even going to say what it is, but I transcribed nuance for nuance, note for note, in the same key, this solo from Pink Floyd. I may walk around during this too, so you get the space. We don't have a laser show, but it'll be a... sound familiar to anybody? That's like Shine On You Crazy Diamond Part 2 or something like that. It's from the Wish You Were Here album. And if he slides in slide on a lot of their albums, but Atom Heart Mother, ATOM, I would recommend checking that album out if you don't know it, because there's crazy brass band stuff on there and great slide solos. So that's a kind of ethereal, distilled guitar. We have another character who came around in the 60s that I think what easily people would say is in the Charley Patton lineage, but really this guy was maybe even more eclectic of his influences than the guys in Pink Floyd. A lot of Pink Floyd is blues chord progressions, so they have a sort of a space affiliation, but it's very rooted in blues tonalities. So this I'm going to do my transcription of, or it's an arrangement really, but I transcribed some of his solos of Hey Joe, of Jimi Hendrix version of Hey Joe, which he didn't write, but it was his first hit. And of course, people think, oh, Jimi Hendrix and blues, his style was a lot more eclectic than just blues. In a way, that would be like saying, Bruce Lee was like kung fu. So it's like, well, he was a lot more. There's a martial artist in the room, but if I'm in error, you can correct me. But Bruce Lee was like martial arts, capital M-A. Like it was very absorptive, and I feel the same about Hendrix. That's why he's had a similar influence as Bruce Lee, but in his sphere. Because he was playing background guitar with groups like not like the Temptations, but like the B or C roll Temptations, and Hendrix was doing that sessions and stuff. And then, for better or worse, I think it was entheogens, psychedelics, that changed his state of consciousness, and then his cosmic creativeness was fully unleashed. So this is my version of Hey Joe. Thank you. That doesn't just sound like the building settling. I think somebody's up there too, I'm going to have to say. In fact, I'm 100% sure it's those two young men that just walked by in and out on the roof. Hey kids, get off of my lawn! Hey kids, get down from there! I played I played gigs with a guy that would do this sort of old man character, and he would shout that, "Get off my lawn, Kehoe!" Would do that character. Gave me the idea.
Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, right. Why didn't you? No, that's out of everybody's control. But okay, so let's get a little bit more meditative. I'm going to play my piece called "Mysteries of Harmony and Focus," which is also, like you've noticed that I've been doing some, like I said, rhythm section style playing with circular breathing. Circular breathing allows me to play without breaking, which if you listen to the bass guitar, the bass, or the tuba, let's say, well, the string bass, solid bass lines don't really stop. They don't always have places to breathe. And that's an interest of mine in terms of a writer and performer. So circular breathing is something I've been doing, which probably you didn't notice, and I don't make a big deal out of it. But in the Zen pieces, you can't do it because it's based on your breath. So however long your breath is, that's the phrase. So this piece, Mysteries of Harmony and Focus, is a blues, tonally, like the notes and the style is blues, but it's breath-centric. So I only circular breathe on the last note. And then after that, I'm doing Honshirabe, which is the beginner warm-up Zen meditation piece in that breath-centric style. So if you're not meditating yet, get ready to do so. So I'll do those songs back to back, hopefully without talking or yelling at your kids. Mysteries of Harmony and Focus, and then a Honshirabe, your one gem of traditional Zen repertoire of the evening. Honshirabe. Okay, well, I don't know what time it is, but we'll probably start thinking about wrapping it up here. I've got two closers. I think I'll play the one on the big flute. 8:41. All right, perfect. So this piece has a mix of all of this stuff in a way that I've done. It was probably the earliest of what I'm now calling the bamboo gospel style, and I wrote it in about 2009, and I premiered it in Japan on a little sort of field trip we did with my teacher. We went to his teacher's place in Miniyama, but we hung out in Kyoto a lot, and we had like a recital. So how many people know what the koto is? The instrument. So that's like it's like a Japanese zither, table harp. It's like the guzheng in China, but the koto's got different modifications. So it's a string instrument that sort of they sit on the floor and it's plucked, but also kind of slides. So it's kind of got some slide string instrument qualities as well. So there's a lot of koto playing in Japan. In a way, that's how shakuhachi players have survived, because their repertoire requires for certain pieces shakuhachi and shamisen, another string instrument. So, according to my teacher's experience living in Japan, that was part of their role. So they play a lot of these royal sort of court music pieces that were sankyoku, or jiuta is the other word for them. They're all written like 1770s, kind of around the same time as Haydn and Mozart and them were writing their classical era stuff. And if you listen, I had to study that stuff in music school, but I don't put on a playlist of all the Mozart symphonies. They all sound the same to me. And it's the same with this Japanese court music stuff. It's like if you've heard one piece, they go through the same iterations, the same tempo changes, and there's vocals. So there's a big repertoire, but a lot of these pieces sound the same. But they need shakuhachi in there. So this recital I premiered this piece at was like that. It was a koto recital with some shakuhachi players like us from America, most of us I think on that, playing in between. So it was like an all day, it was like a 4-hour recital or something like that. And I was not feeling, I was playing a big flute like this. I wrote my own compositions, the only one on the whole recital. I started off and playing in the wrong key because you get pitch drift on these. How we do pitch bends is because how do you know where your main pitch is? It's like a guitar string that would be always loose. That's what our instrument is like. So it depends where your head position is at. So I start where I can get my sound, and then I realize a couple of minutes in that I'm like way flat to where I want to be, and how do I adjust? So anyway, also the title, I didn't take it from the Iron Maiden song, but they have a song called Purgatory also. This is my song called Purgatory. Maybe it was a personal state I was in. I don't remember why I named it that, but it describes this liminal zone between being a, let's say, orchestral and jazz instrument musician, and then this whole other world of Japanese culture instrument, traditional instrument that's it's not even mechanical. There's nothing on it, so it relies on your cooperation with it. So this is Purgatory, and thanks for coming. I'm Cornelius Boots. Let's thank everybody for coming one at a time. I almost know everybody's name, my parents and Felicia, my partner, and Ray, who sort of helped me facilitate coming on, and Dyron, who brought himself out and has been great to meet, and all these other folks on this side of the room that I'm really glad you came, because then we have sort of a little semicircle here. So you can hang out after as we're sort of packing up, and if you have any questions, just come up, but we'll conclude the music part with this Purgatory, which starts hopefully with some really good distortion effects, if they work. course, I would like to also thank Charley Patton. Of course, this whole concert dedicated to him, his spirit, his memory, his musicianship, and also the fact that he's not gone, even if he's not here physically. And I really encourage everyone to engage with his recordings, and also Son House, Blind Willie Johnson, and Skip James. And they've, to me, studying those recordings and absorbing them so that they can enter my musicianship, I'll have moments where, of course, I think the world is upside down. Like I say, we've got machines versus God and nature. But the fact that those recordings exist, to me, is worth more than, lots of things that you could try to enumerate. Or, like if this room was filled with gold bars, would they be as inspiring as just that one Mississippi Boll Weevil recording? Not really on an experiential level. So we take it for granted. Recording is still pretty new in the world of like 10,000 years of musicianship that we've been playing. Flutes, that's another part of my lineage. Flutes are 20, 30, maybe 40,000 years old. So that we can experience someone's spirit and musicianship through recordings is kind of profound. So I'll leave you with that. Thanks everyone for coming, and keep in touch through people that you know here that have my email. And I've got some CDs as well, if you remember what those are. You can buy one. I've got them in my bag. All right, thanks.